Hello and welcome to the FRA Launch Webinar Series. Right now I am with Jenneen Kaufman. Jenneen is the Senior Vice President and CFO for the Titans. She also oversees accounting for Nissan Stadium. She is an active member of the community and serves as board chair for the United Way of Greater Nashville and as vice chair on the Downtown Partnership Board. In 2011, she was named one of Nashville's most powerful women by the Nashville Post, and has been just greatly involved in her community, in the FRA community, an advocate for accounting and an advocate for lots of different things. And we are thrilled to chat with her today. So Jenneen, thank you for being with me and chatting with me so that we can share some advice with the FRA community.
Betsy, thank you so much for having me, and thank you FRA for having me today. It is really an honor. I've watched some of the other launch series, and so to be a part of that is just really special for me. So I really appreciate the invite.
Wonderful. Well, every time I talk with you, Jenneen, I learn something new. And when you're able to visit our classes and from sports business to everything else. So I am grateful for your time. And let's just kind of jump into it here. So can you tell our audience just a little bit about yourself and maybe kind of the job you do now and how you got started in that direction?
Yeah, so let me start back with how I got started, which kind of all the way goes back to high school, crazily enough. So when I was in school, I loved math and loved science, and I just really excelled in those areas. And I knew that I was going to be an engineer. My dad was an electrical engineer. He actually had his master's in electrical engineer and had a wonderful job at TVA. And so I had applied to all the schools when I was a junior and senior, and actually got a full scholarship to Tennessee Tech to be in engineering. So knew that was the path I was going to be going down. Well, in the spring of my senior year, my dad actually lost his job with TVA. They went through a huge RIF, or reduction in force, at the time. And it was really devastating for our family. Although my mom worked, she was not really the primary breadwinner. And it impacted me in such a way to see him. He was kind of in the upper management of TVA, and to see that kind of take the toll on him and the toll on our family, I decided engineering wasn't for me. So crazily enough, I actually went and talked to one of the guidance counselors at my high school. And I sat down with her and kind of explained where I was emotionally, and what I really liked is one of the questions she asked me. What do you really like to do? And when I explained to her I really love math and I really love science, she recommended accounting as a job career path. I knew nothing about accounting whatsoever. But she said, you know what, Jenneen, it's a great field for a woman, first of all, and there's lots of different opportunities within the accounting field. You can own your own business, you can work for a large public firm, you can actually work in private industry and something maybe that you're really interested in. And so I turned down the full scholarship, much to my parents' dismay, switched schools, and decided to go to the University of Tennessee, which I did still have a small scholarship, but it wasn't a full ride. And then I actually found an internship during the summer, so the summer between my senior year and the start of my freshman year of college, at a local CPA firm, to actually figure out, did I really like it? Was it something I was interested in? And I found, to my surprise, that I really enjoyed it. I really liked the accounting world. And so that's really kind of how I got my start into the accounting world. Was, I was heading down one path, and God throws you a curve, and you totally turn different direction and go in a different way. And so I think that's interesting, and something that really maybe applies to some of the high school students who maybe you don't know exactly what you want to be at this point in your career, but you will figure it out, I promise.
So if you could give yourself sort of a piece of advice, it sounds like that guidance counselor was very helpful, and I'm happy to hear that. But if you could kind of go back in time and kind of think about your high school years in terms of getting to where you are now, is there any advice that you would give yourself, or a piece of advice that was given to you that you would like to kind of pay forward?
Ooh, I have actually 3 pieces of advice. And they're short and sweet, and you'll see that a lot of things that have impacted my life have been really centered around my family. And so my three pieces of advice really come, two from my grandmother and one from my mom. The two from my grandmother are, number one is work smarter, not harder. And so when I find myself in a situation where I am stressed out and I am killing myself trying to get to an answer, I have to take a step back and come about it maybe from a different direction. I am working so hard and maybe that's not the right way to do it. And so sometimes taking that step back, reflecting on really where am I trying to get to, and putting that working smarter piece into action really helps me get to a better conclusion and with a lot less trouble. So that's one thing. The second thing I will say is, and I'll say this, have a good cry about it and move on. And that also came from my grandmother. Your life is not going to be without trials and tribulations. You are going to have heartaches and you are going to have things that happen in your life that are devastating. There's just no way around that. And my grandmother, her and I used to sit and have country ham and biscuits together like once a week. And I would go to her sometimes and kind of pour out my heart on things. And she would say, Jenneen, if it's out of your control, have a good cry about it and move on. And so I have really tried to apply that to my life. When you can't control it, get over it, start moving forward and taking steps. No one gets anywhere wallowing in self-pity. So pick yourself up, move on. And then the third piece is really, it's not so much advice as it is something that I see in my mom on a regular basis. My mom is she's really like a little angel on earth. She is always giving of herself. She is the most selfless person that I know. And so I really try hard to emulate that in my life by giving back to others, which is, you mentioned like being chair of the United Way board. That's one thing that I've really tried to do in my life, is to carve out time out of my busy work schedule to make sure that I'm doing the things that really matter most in life, which is that giving back to others and giving to other people. And my mom has just been an incredible role model for me in that regard. So those are kind of my three pieces of advice that I would share with the FRA community.
Well, that is great advice, and you are definitely a role model yourself. So it sounds like you've inherited some great traits, and clearly service has been kind of woven in throughout, which makes you probably very busy. You're always, I bet, pulled in a lot of directions. So how do you relax and not worry and, kind of like separate yourself from that? Is there anything that you used to worry about a lot that you don't worry about now? Any advice on that front?
So I'll say this, when I started my role with the Titans organization, I did worry a lot. And one of the big worries, now you got to remember, I have been with the Titans, I just finished my 23rd season. So I'm heading into my 24th season. So think 23 years ago in NFL, it was very male dominated back then. And so one of the things that really worried me the most, I think, was being a female in that environment, and how was I really going to succeed and be really successful in that. And so I say I don't really worry about that as much anymore because I've had such incredible success along the way. Part of that success I feel like was really drawn from, I knew it was a concern being a female in this role. And so one of the few of the steps that I've really taken to kind of overcome that is really knowing my business. Like, I know football. I can talk shop. I can talk players. I can talk salary cap all day long. I actually have a fantasy football team that's on like a free team. So that's one thing. I made really good friends with a lot of the department heads, the equipment guy, the video guy, the stadium person. So really making those connections over time has really helped me, because they turn to me because they know what I am kind of talking about. So those are some of the things that I helped to overcome. The other thing was, I was really fortunate in the fact that Mr. Adams was an incredible man, and he actually promoted me to CFO. And so he really helped propel women. He obviously has two daughters who own the team. And I'm very fortunate to be working for Amy Adams Strunk, who is one of the few female controlling owners in the NFL. And that is such an honor there. And so there was a lot of angst at the beginning that certainly I've been able to overcome, and it's really not a worry anymore.
That's awesome. That's just a great story to hear too, because, as we look at fields and even in college environments, and like in your major and, as you're deciding kind of where to be and what to do, I think a lot of things are getting more distributed amongst everyone. And that's, wonderful to see. So during this, you kind of talked about, it looks like you're working from home right now. And you talked about family during this time of social distancing and doing all of that with the team from afar. How have you juggled that?
So we are really set up fortunately in the accounting area where we can do everything remote. So we had gone paperless several years ago. That was an initiative that we took. We started about 3 or 4 years ago, was to move our entire department paperless. And so that really, we didn't really know, obviously, this was coming, but that really helped set the stage for my department, and IT actually reports up through me as well. And so for IT to really, really be able to roll this out quickly and really get everybody up and running seamlessly. And so we've been doing it pretty well, I have to say. And for some people, they really love being remote and working from home. We actually today just started player off-season workouts. And so they are doing their workouts virtually, but they're actually having to attend classrooms with the different position coaches virtually as well. So that's something else that we actually rolled out today. And so we are setting up, moving on. As you saw this past weekend, we had the draft, which was unbelievable. And it was all done remotely. John Robinson from his house, Mike Vrabel from his house, and basically all around the league. The commissioner was at home as well. And it was just wildly successful. And so I think that, we've been able to really overcome some of those obstacles of working remotely and put it all into motion.
Is there anything that you have learned sort of from this time, either about yourself or about your workplace, that you'll hopefully carry forward from this experience?
So for me personally, I think I've kind of liked working from home. It's been a little bit, it hasn't necessarily been slower paced, because I think we have been busier than ever, to be honest. But we've been able to take the time out during the day to really do things that are really important, whether it's stopping during the day and having lunch with my daughter, whether it's turning the computer off at night and being able to sit down and actually relax and watch a movie. And it's removed a little bit of the stress, I would say, of commuting back and forth and the rush, go, 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 go type of environment. I'm not saying that we're not like that on the computer and trying to get stuff done, but it definitely has, I think, been able for people to take a time back to kind of reflect on spending time with their loved ones and walking the dog and getting outside a little more and just kind of enjoying nature and being out there in the world a little bit. So for me, that's one of the things that I hope to take away when we go back to normal, whatever the new normal is going to be, is to be able to kind of still take that time out to relax and have that work-life balance.
So as we're kind of starting to wrap here, you didn't know what you wanted to be in high school. I don't think I knew what I wanted to be in high school, but if someone is watching right now and they're like, yes, that is cool. I also like math and everything you've kind of said. It seems like I kind of want that. I want to be, a CFO for a sports organization. What advice would you give them to either start now, or what should they consider as they would head that direction?
So one thing for sure is networking. I mean, I can't say that enough. And honestly, that's crazily enough how I wound up getting my position here at the Titans, was all through networking. I was actually playing softball with a partner that I used to work with at one of the audit firms where I was. And so, so we were literally playing softball. I was warming up with him. The company I was working for at the time was going through this large merger. And I was telling him I really didn't want to move and I didn't want to leave Nashville. And he literally called me the next day and told me about this job opportunity. I put my resume together, I sent it in, I had one interview and got the job. Now, I will say this, that is not the norm for getting into sports. I have friends who really set out and want to work in the sports organization, and you have to be willing generally to move, right? There's only 32 teams in the league, and there's only one team in Nashville. If you want to work in hockey, it's kind of the same way. There's a finite number of teams, and so if you want to get in sports, being willing to move, to go to a different place, trying to find those types of internships. And that can be an internship. It doesn't even necessarily have to be like in the field you're interested in, but being able to get your foot in the door, make those connections, get out, meet people. That is the way I think that is the best opportunity to try and get in sports. And there's also great volunteer opportunities. For example, when the draft was actually here last year, I had several friends whose kids actually volunteered and they went down and worked at the draft and helped around those things. Sports Council has a lot of great opportunities for volunteer, and we have a lot of cool sports events coming to Nashville over the next few years. So get out there, volunteer, meet people, reach out to people in your community, offer to go have a cup of coffee with somebody. Things like that make a huge difference.
That is great advice. Thank you very much. Anything else that you would want to share or say as we sign off here?
Just that you guys stay home, stay safe, keep your social distancing going. I know it's really hard. Trust me, I have a freshman at FRA and it's very hard. I know everybody's biting at the bit to get out there and go to the movies and shop and that type of stuff. But it is so important that we've stayed at home and that we've done our social distancing, and we're almost through this. We're almost over it, and we just persevere and stay through it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us. I'm wishing you and the Titans every success. And hopefully we will get to cross paths in person and on campus sometime soon.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Talk to you later.
Yeah.